This recording is being archived under civilian historical access authorization, though I suspect very few people will ever listen to the entirety of it. That is not bitterness, merely probability. My name is Admiral Aelys Nir Rhyne, retired Alliance Vanguard Fleet Expeditionary Command, Exploration Division primarily. Though toward the end of my service, I spent more time arguing with councils than charting stars, which I suppose is how one truly knows they have become an admiral. I did not fight in the Galactic War. By the time it began, I had already been retired for several years. My hands were no longer on tactical displays. My orders no longer moved fleets. I watched the war the same way billions did, through fragmented reports, delayed casualty lists, failing hyperwave broadcasts, and the terrible silence that follows when entire sectors stop responding. Perhaps that distance is precisely why I am recording these logs now, or perhaps that is only part of the truth. There are already countless military commentaries on the war, tactical breakdowns, strategic analyses, political accusations carefully disguised as scholarship. Entire academies now debate who escalated first, who should bear responsibility, which fleets performed most effectively, which doctrine proved superior, who truly won. I have listened to many of these discussions. Some are intelligent, some are honest. Very few feel complete. Because increasingly, I find we speak about the war as though it were merely an equation waiting to be solved correctly, as though enough analysis might eventually reduce catastrophe into something orderly. But wars of this scale are never merely military events. They reveal things about civilizations, about fear, about survival, about what people become once they believe collapse is close enough to touch. And perhaps most dangerously, they reveal what we are willing to justify in order to continue existing. I am old enough now to admit something younger officers dislike hearing. Most civilizations do not become monstrous intentionally. Usually they become frightened first. The Empire believed severity justified survival. The Nexus believed freedom justified instability. The Covenant believed preservation justified isolation. And perhaps the rest of us were not as different from them as we preferred to imagine. That is why I am recording this. Not to determine winners and losers. History will argue about those endlessly. I want instead to speak about the nature of the war itself through the people who endured it, the factions who shaped it, the decisions that carried entire civilizations toward catastrophe, and the rare moments that pulled them back. But if I am being fully truthful, there is another reason I am speaking now. Because there are still things about the war that trouble me, not merely politically, not strategically, existentially. Questions that survived even after the fighting ended. I spent most of my life as an explorer before I became an admiral. Real exploration, not ceremonial frontier tours arranged for political photography. I crossed collapsed lanes, followed dead signal trails into unmapped sectors, searched ruins older than recorded Alliance history. And throughout those years, there were always stories. I chased those stories for decades, and I never found enough to satisfy me. Only fragments, echoes, broken archives pointing towards something larger just beyond understanding. Then the war happened, and suddenly myths I had spent my youth chasing began surfacing inside reality itself. Even now, years later, I still do not know what all of it truly meant, and I think that uncertainty bothers me more than I expected it would. Perhaps because age creates a strange urgency. When one is young, mysteries feel infinite. When one grows old, one begins quietly wondering which questions will outlive them unanswered. So these logs are not merely historical commentary. They are, perhaps selfishly, an attempt to leave behind a record of uncertainty itself. Because I fear future generations may simplify this war into clean narratives of victory and villainy, and if they do, they may lose the very lessons that mattered most. The galaxy survived. But survival alone does not automatically create understanding. Sometimes it merely creates enough silence for difficult questions to finally become audible. The first entry after this one will concern the Alliance, which feels appropriate, not because we were the greatest power involved, but because, for all our failures, we spent much of the war trying desperately to keep the galaxy from forgetting its own humanity.